and then we will begin. But we are now going to be moving on to our next thing and to getting to know Bridget just a little bit more. But for starters, you need a blank page. It can be white or it can be any color, but it needs to be blank or something you don't mind covering over because we are going to collage on this. Before we collage, though, I just invite you to take a moment, maybe shut your eyes if you feel comfortable with that, and just kind of think back on all the stuff we've told you about this woman that maybe you've never heard of her. Maybe you find her fascinating and intriguing and you're curious to know more. Maybe you're a little bit uh, uninterested or even turned off by the idea of her for whatever reason. But just kind of hold those feelings. And I want you to just write down any 3 words that come to mind. Here are some possibilities: light, vision, flame, courage, boldness, generosity, bright, innovative, strong, resourceful, nurturing, intrepid, creative, learned, industrious, free, open. Now, that is not an exhaustive list, but it's a pretty great one. So, any of those words, just write them kind of in the center of your page. And then I want you to flip your page over. And again, this is going to be an unfolding process. So if you want to know what we're doing, feel free to skip to the end and see, and then come back to join us here. But if you're enjoying the kind of not knowing as you go, then stick with us. Um, and as we work, there's going to be some more kind of quiet, busy hands, um, almost meditative work. So while you do that this time, Bethany and I are going to share a couple of our, or a few of our favorite Bridget tales. And we're going to offer some questions that we would love for you to take to heart, that you take them to heart, because that's what this really is about. It's about the heart. And so, more than art making, let's think of this as heart making. Um, that, maybe these stories of this person that you've never heard about are kind of quickening something within you. Quickening is a term, it's kind of an old fashioned term used to describe like a flutter in the gut, often associated with the first sign that a woman has when she's pregnant, that sense, that flutter. But I think it means something is waking within us, something is coming alive. And so it is appropriate that Bridget was also a midwife for animals and people. Um, that maybe this process is beginning to birth something new in you. So on this page, while Bethany and I talk, again, we're going to let the busy hands kind of quiet the mind, because that's what creative depth coaching is it's about getting to those deep places that you can't always get to when you stay all in your head. And yeah, it's kind of the opposite to the way most of us live. Our minds, our opinions, our decisions, our judgments, our organizational skills kind of set the agenda for our lives, and we try to understand everything, rationalize everything, explain everything, manage everything, control everything. Guilty as charged.
Me too.
Um, but here at the gathering, like one of the things Bethany and I talked about when we dreamed about this, and we have been dreaming about something like this for a very long time, even before we both became creative depth coaches. Um, our big,
Years.
yeah, 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 a long time. And we've known each other for years. So we'll tell you some of those stories another time. But um, the dream always was a place where people could come and
Mhm.
just breathe and be, and where um where that busy hamster mind could rest,
Mhm.
and maybe there be some space for the heart to develop, um because yeah, we don't have enough space for that, so we're gonna work.
Or we won't make space for it.
True.
We won't look for solutions in the slowing down, which winter
Yeah,
often asks of us too.
yeah. So before Bethany chats some more, which I want to hear her thoughts because she has such great thoughts on this. Um, on this page, you are going to make an intuitive collage. You're going, what? What's an intuitive collage? Um, it's pretty simple. Take those words you wrote, filter them into your body, in your hands, in your eyes, in your brain, and flip through pages of magazines. They do not all have to be the same size. Find colors, find textures, find images, find
Mm. Intuitively.
intuitively. Just here's how I do it. I'm going to show you. I'm going to grab this beautiful British travel magazine that a friend gave me when she moved away. And I'm going to think of my words. My words were light, warmth, invitation. So I'm going to look through just anything that says light. Oh, here's a picture of lions. I don't know what it has to do with it, but for some reason, my heart says get it. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to pick just a series. Or maybe, oh, there's this sunlit house. I'm just going to tear that out. And then once I have a pile of images, I'm going to put them on a paper. I can do a design. I can do it haphazard and random. I can do it without using any of the actual images, but just using the color, cutting strips, cutting shapes. Or I can carefully cut out this lion and then carefully cut out this house and make it a scene. It doesn't matter. Um, it is whatever you feel, whatever you are led to. The main points you need to remember: cover the center and then work your way to cover the rest, but for sure, get the center covered. As little paper showing as possible, unless you like your paper, is ideal. But yeah, you want to cover as much of that center, but you can. I'd love for you to cover the whole page, but this is going to be fairly quick, so don't get too precious on
Mhm.
it. I did a few of these warming up, like I said, and one of them I was like, go fast, go fast, go fast, like practice what you preach, Amy. And so I did. I just tore and taped and tore or glued, tore and glued and tore. I barely used scissors. It did not make any sense. Um, except it was about color. And then the more I did it, the more I was like, ooh, there's like a whole vibrant kind of energetic pulse coming through this. And then when I did the later steps, I was like, oh, there was a lot there. So intuitive can mean detail, or it can just mean quick and unthinking. But either way, that's what I want you to be doing now while Bethany and I get a little deeper into the heart of not only who Bridget was, because it's really not about Bridget, it's about what these stories stir within you and within
Mm.
me. Um,
What
'Cause
they awaken, what they
mhm,
cause to quicken within.
mhm, yeah. And she does matter because of what she comes to mean to you and to me and to um, people for centuries across the globe. And that's why she's significant. That's
Mhm.
why we continue to tell
Yeah.
her stories, because um, like I read about in that first part, that was a reflection I'd had on the archetype. I know what an archetype is, but my brain was going, but I don't understand what it has to do with this like coaching and psychological, understanding of ourselves. I don't understand what it means with depth work. And then we read for one of our assignments, we read a childhood novel that, or a children's novel that I loved as a little girl. And one, it was incredibly powerful to revisit a story that I loved, and maybe one of these days we'll revisit that same story.
I hope
Um,
so.
but what I realized in reading it was that it all clicked together, that these stories, again, the character in this book was significant, just like Bridget is significant. But if we look around, we begin to see there are iterations of Bridget, which is why no one can tell the difference. I mean, it's not just archaeological things have gotten lost to mud and wind, but it's that the story keeps being told and told and told because something about the story gets into our bones and it means something, even if we've lost all sight of the facts and the details and the meanings and the myths and all of that. It eventually doesn't matter. But then we have these Bridgets popping up all over the place.
Mhm.
We have these, you know, Anne of Green Gable type girls popping up all over the place. We have, you know, we have the old witch in the woods with the mysterious cauldron and these two children coming to ask her something popping up all over the place. We have the blind prophet popping up all over the place. Why? Because they are telling us something about ourselves. They are telling us something about not just the religion or culture that they come from, not just the people and language that they come from, but they are telling that human story and that
Mhm.
specific story for you and for me. And so that's why we're here with Bridget, because we know she has a bigger story to tell um, than any one of her individual stories. And so we wanted to dig into that.
So, like Amy was saying, we find ourselves in the stories. We meet ourselves on the road in these parts that we see. And we're staying out of the brain. So I want you to roll your shoulders back and relax and lean into the creativity and let your heart open and expand and lead your creation, lead your selection with your heart. Get out of your mind as much as possible at the gathering that we've created. We're letting that part of us relax, and shift, and pause. And pause. I'm going to start about a story of expanding, a story of Bridget's cloak. Soon after her ordination, St. Bridget wanted to start her own monastery that celebrated and cultivated all of those things that she most loved: the practical work of dairy farming, spinning wool, weaving, forging, and smithing, the communal work of feeding people and welcoming strangers, the celebratory work of providing a place where all could flourish. She decided that the edge of Curragh in Kildare was the ideal place. It had ample oak forests for firewood and building, fresh water in a nearby lake, and a large, fertile, open plain for growing food. She approached the landowner and asked for the land to establish her monastery. The landowner laughed and refused, but Bridget was not deterred. A second time, she asks him, and she asks him the second time for as much land as her cloak would cover. The tenacity of her, the assertiveness of her. Oh, as much land as her cloak could cover. Bemused by her request, the landowner agreed. When he saw her small cloak, he laughed out loud, and Bridget took off her cloak, which was a blue cloak in the original story, but it's often depicted as green now. When Bridget took off her cloak, she asked 4 of her friends to take a corner. Remember, there's the number 4 again. And walk in the 4 different directions: north, east, south, and west. And as they walked away from her, the cloak grew and grew and grew until it covered many hundreds of acres. The landowner was still true to his word. Amazed by this, he still was true to his word and granted her the lands for her monastery. On this land, Bridget founded one of Ireland's most sacred early Christian monasteries about the year 470, often referred to still as the Church of the Oak. A cathedral dedicated to St. Bridget still stands to this day, adjacent to the wonderful round tower. And you can look at the land from the top of the tower at St. Bridget's Cloak, and I was able to do that in its extensive land, and it is still they have horses there now, and there's still cattle and sheep, and it's tended wild around her well. And the amount of birds and beautiful birds and clooties that are placed above the trees, it's surrounded by trees and briars in this area. It's beautiful. So we have a couple of questions for you to ponder, and you can listen to them now and come back. We will be sending you a handout with these questions too. So no need to stop pulling and being in flow right now. Just listen to the questions. What are you sensing in an area that you want or need to expand? Are you sensing an area to let your heart develop? In what ways would you like to replace judgment or fear with curiosity or openness? In what ways would you like to expand curiosity and openness and replace judgment and fear? How do tenacity or assertiveness play into your expansion? When you think of the 4 people that held the corners, the 4 directions, what does support look like in your expansion? And lastly, in what ways do you think you need to follow your heart more? Might you change where you think less with your head and more with your heart? And how might open-heartedness impact this new year ahead?
one of my favorite miracles attributed to Saint Bridget in the lore and legend and stories of Bridget. Um, it's a very simple one. She was out tending flocks early in the morning, and she had with her a companion named Sister Daria, who happened to be blind. And it was so early, they were there for the sunrise. And so as they're looking east um, to the mountains and the sun rising, Bridget is overwhelmed, overcome with how beautiful the sunrise is, the colors, and the way the light plays on everything and touches things and makes them come alive and almost looks like the world is on fire. And she is so taken by the pure beauty of this moment. And then she looks at her friend in rapture and thinks, she cannot see this. I want her to see this beauty that I have, this vision of beauty that is before me. And so she prayed that her friend would be able to see, and instantaneously, Daria sees for the first time, and what she sees is this stunning sunrise. And the two women are just reveling in this beauty that's before them. And then Daria turns to Bridget and says, thank you for letting me see this beautiful light. But would you please pray that now I am blind again, because I find that when I cannot see with my eyes, my heart is more open to what it can see.
Mm.
And Bridget was so honored and moved by her friend's request that that her friend became blind again and never saw again. And they were friends. They lived together in the monastery for a very long time after that. And I love a number of things from that story. But mostly I love how Bridget was moved by a vision of something that she saw, and how that vision led her to believe in what was possible, and led her to want to share that vision with others, because she thought that her awareness of this beauty may be something that only she had, and that she wanted others to have that awareness. So here are a couple questions. What is a particular beauty that you notice that you would like to have more visibility in the world? What is something beautiful in you? A beauty that is uniquely yours, a beauty that you see, but wish that you could share with others.
Mm.
How have you been the recipient of vision, of renewed perspective, of restored insight, of reminded truth? And finally, do you have a vision that you would like to see expanded in your life?
I love that, Amy. I'm finishing tearing the edge before I come to the last story. Huh, I love that. I love doorways in collage. So symbolic. So the last story is one that I've heard. It's not a well-known tale. It's often told as a meditation or in first person, but I've modified it to tell it here today because the last kind of attribute or principle that we want to finish with is belonging, because at the gathering, that's what we hope you feel, a place of belonging, a place to be seen, a place to feel seen, and especially when we're live down at our future events, we really want to build a place of belonging. Um, the woman was walking in the woods behind her house, and she decided to walk in the woods behind her house because she'd felt this quickening inside of her. Um, what do the woods look like at night? And she'd often heard that the woods, or the, I'm sorry, that the nighttime seeing in the dark is what the wise ways or the old ways called intuition. Intuition is seeing in the dark. And she wanted to begin to grow her intuition. And so she felt a quickening and excitement at the idea of walking in the woods behind her house at night. So she selected a night, a full moon night, and she sets out, and it's cold. She can see her breath. She can see pale glimmers from birch. She can see the oak that are out there, and there's no leaves on them. She's stepping on twigs, and she hears the twigs. She hears the call of the owl, the hooting. She even hears a fox in the background, and she continues to wonder, and she's just, as she rhythmically steps, or she steps, she falls in line with the rhythm, and she lets kind of her brain drain. She lets everything begin to leave her, and she's just meditating and focusing and being present in the woods, feeling the cold on her face. And as she looks up, she sees a circle, a grove of trees, but they're in a circle. And she thinks, "What? How did that get there? What's that?" And as she steps closer, a path opens and leads into this grove that it is a circle. And she quickly decides, why not? I'm here. Let's see where this takes me. So she follows her intuition and she begins to step inside the circle. And a fire is in the middle, a bonfire is in the middle. She's cold by this time. So she steps towards the fire and she notices that she can see into the middle because the middle is open and empty. There's nothing around her. She looks to the right, looks to the left, looks ahead of her, and looks behind her. It's just cleared, but there's this clear marking of trees. And now she's in the circle and she's warming her hands by her fire. She's not alarmed. She's actually at ease. Now that she's enclosed in this circle, she feels her body relax. And as she's staring at the fire and watching it dance, she notices she can't see her breath anymore. But what she can see out of the corner of her eye are sparks. She's, what is this? So she looks over and she sees this red hair flying from this woman who's hitting an anvil and laughing, cackling, just full of joy, hammering. And she throws up whatever she's been hammering, and it's stars. And you see the sparks come down, and the stars rise into the night sky. And the woman is fully embodied in the moment, fully present, this red haired woman. And the watcher realizes it's Bridget. And Bridget catches her eye. She looks over and she just finished throwing up a star and looks over at the woman and says, "I delight in you." And the woman, the watcher, knows suddenly she belongs. She's seen, she's held, all is well. She knows what love, what joy, what delight is. And our hope for you at the gathering is to begin to feel this within through creativity, through storytelling, through listening, through learning, through connecting, that you know what it is to be delighted in and to delight in someone else, in something else, to delight in yourself. That you know that delight and belonging both are part of what we're working toward in our community here at the gathering and in the culture that we seek to build and to keep.
As you wrap up, as you wrap up your collages, I hope that you will just kind of take these stories into your heart, into those deep places within you, and begin to let them stir up.
Mm, spark something.
Maybe you're not sure why you came here today, but yeah, maybe this is why, because there's a story in you that is ready to be told, and yeah, that now is the time to begin telling
Mhm.
you.